This is Dieter Staudinger, a first officer here at FearlessFlight. And yes, we are missing still our captain, and I can promise you a good health update a little bit later in the show. But here's the crew. We have Captain Eric Larson. Hey, Eric, how's it going?
Good.
Yep. Did you how was Christmas holidays for you? What's been the highlight?
Oh, I'll tell you what. Both my wife and I contracted COVID, and it was kind of a rough ride, a little light but rough ride. But yesterday morning for my birthday, we went and both got checked because we're doing a lot better. Thank you, and that's why I look older. And we both got negative checks, so we can talk to our friends again. We're clearing all the way through that. So after I got up early in the morning to get the bad check, then I went to battle with the IRS, who's made a mistake on reading some stuff. So I had a fun Christmas, but even a better birthday. With a bad check and fighting with the IRS.
Wow. And yeah. Diane, thanks, Eric. Diane, I followed you vicariously through through
several different states.
You rivaled Santa Claus.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I think we may have seen him at one point. You never know. Yeah.
Cool. So where were you on Christmas?
I was in California, and then Christmas Eve we were in Montana, and that was very Christmassy. It was quite cold, and we all went out and got a nice dinner. And then Christmas Day we wound up back in California, and so Christmas Eve it was sweaters and gloves and hats, and Christmas Day it was in a bathing suit by the pool at the hotel back in California. So
wow, excellent.
As usual, it was a normal flight attendant 4-day over Christmas.
Wow. So that's quite the experience. So if you are new here and wondering what are you watching, you are seeing Fearless Flight Live, our weekly live show for fearful flyers or anyone who is nervous about getting on an airplane or knows somebody who is afraid to get in the air. And so we do this every week, 6:30 Pacific, and usually we are joined by our Captain Ron. And I will give an update in a little bit, but the first thing tonight, if you're watching and you haven't answered our poll question, is when do you see yourself traveling again? And so if you just want to click on that link, I'll put it into the comments in a little bit. Next, we're going to take our travel predictions here from our esteemed panel. All of us have some quite unique insights into the aviation and travel industry. And Captain Ron's medical status, and we have a very cool story of transformation to share with you from our Birds of a Feather Facebook group. And lastly, we're gonna talk a little bit about ground operations during pushback and parking, and why that's important and why that is a trigger for a lot of people, maybe not consciously but subconsciously. We're gonna talk a little bit about that. All right, so let me just stop the share and then we can come back here. Let me first talk about Captain Ron. I know that if you've been a follower of the show over the last couple of weeks, you have noticed Captain Ron's absence, and he had what turned out to be a little bit of a medical emergency. Long story short, he divorced his gallbladder, and it was not quick enough for him, and it was definitely not painless, and it was definitely something, and that's the message that Captain Ron wants to share with all of us and with you, fearful flyers. It's the very same processes that he has used to kind of face the challenge, and that namely his own mortality in the process, to kind of manage his emotions, to allow that experience and move it through. And he would be the first one to tell you that, you know, he was more successful in some days than others. Like, and you know, so what we're teaching you is not really about airplanes, and that's why we tell you the pain in your brain is not about the plane, but you want to get on that next flight and you don't want to medicate yourself to death, and you want to, you know, show up there not being a train wreck. So that's why we're here. And let's give you kind of like a prediction from each of our perspectives on what's traveling going to be like in 2021. Diane, what do you think?
Well, my planes over the 4-day Christmas holiday, as you might expect, were pretty full. And that's typical for the holiday period anyway. Sunday was I flew on Sunday, was a very, very busy day. I see it coming back, particularly with the vaccines on the horizon that people are starting to be able to avail themselves of. And so I see it kind of inching its way along back up. I think it's probably going to take a year at least before the numbers come back real well. But I think people are going to continue to have increased confidence in the safety of flying in that regard. And so I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks, Diane. Eric, what about you? What do you see? How do you see aviation industry kind of evolving, innovating, and changing in 2021?
I agree with Diane. I think that's a pretty good prediction. The larger carriers are all still trying to what they call control their cash burn. They're not cash positive yet. And even over the holidays, where we had all this news and publication that over 1 million people a day were clearing TSA checkpoints, I saw some little blurb that the passenger loads were still only half of what they were last year at this time. So domestic flying is coming back a little bit, but not fast enough to make a profit. And they did this bill that was recently passed, gives the airline some more walking money for 3 or 4 months.
Right.
But at some point, they will have to function under their own power. They cannot be a government entity like this or a taxpayer entity for the duration. And as Diane mentioned with the vaccine, there's 2 things going on there. The vaccine will tremendously improve flyer confidence, plus the pinup demand of people wanting to get out. But also this pandemic kind of moved the future of work rapidly ahead 5 or 10 years. And I don't know what will happen with corporate and business travel now that things are neck down and contained virtually and remotely the way they are. That may not come back. But international, I think until there's a vaccine, it will be really flat and really minimal, but with a vaccine, it will probably spring back hard.
And the only thing, you know, much of what you guys shared is also kind of like what I'm seeing, and to that, being more kind of like tuned into the international travel. I've really seen tremendous collaboration between different organizational bodies, regulatory bodies, you know, private sector. Again, it to me, you know, travel is what connects us. Sure, Zoom, internet, and all this is obviously really, really, really helpful. And yet at the same time, you know, people physically need to move from A to B, and that won't change. But what will change is, I think, how regulated that travel will become in terms of crossing international borders and kind of communities and stuff like that. And I honestly hope that in a way the travel industry, the aviation industry, the tourism industry, it truly will be something that's kind of like providing a unification of this whole thing and really make it a whole lot more convenient for us, the passengers, but also safer, right? And safer, I don't mean that from a place of, but there are challenges that need to be addressed, and I think.
Yeah, I think leisure travel, there really, as you said, there's a pent up feeling, emotional feeling, certainly in the United States and no doubt around the world, that people want to travel. They want,
as a therapist, I can tell you that the need to travel or the desire for travel has kind of switched. And when you look at the drug use, when you look at the statistics of both prescription and non-prescription drug use, you see something that you see every time you look into history, when a culture was in a lot of stress, it tried to relieve the stress in different ways. So yeah, it may not be fear of flying right now for you. That's why we have the poll question. When are you planning to fly again? Let us know. What is the time that you decide for yourself where you will get on that airplane? Whether you're afraid of it or not doesn't matter right now, because the why is a big motivator, and it's a big driver of determination and perseverance and energy. So good. Next is let's switch over to our Facebook posts. If I can pull this up, just give me a second here. So Diane, why don't I'm gonna start, and then I'm gonna pull up the page afterwards. If you're not aware, if you're new to the show, we have a Facebook group called Birds of a Feather, and in the Facebook group, we have about 650 members, and people come to share their stories, ask questions, give feedback, and sometimes they come back and share stories of transformation. And one of those we want to kind of use today to talk a little bit here about what is it, the different ingredients that come into your unique path, how you navigate your journey of overcoming fear of flying, because it'll be unique, and yet there are going to be commonalities, and so that's what we're here to talk about. All right, Diane, why don't we, I think we talked about 3 topics that really interested us. Eric, you can talk to the fear of heights. So the person was afraid of heights, terrified actually. And then I said to you, hey, Eric, give me something about being afraid of fear of heights. And so what did you say?
Well, it's not totally debilitating for me, but I have a fear of heights as well, which does not bother me in the slightest in the airplane. But one of the deals we used to do in our live classes, we'd have students in the airplane. They could see the airplane walk back and forth. And what they used to love to do is walk to the back of the airplane, open the door, and see how big and strong the tail was. So we'd open the door, and boy, when I was in the door looking down there, I would have a death grip on the airplane frame. And we had this couple back there one day, and the boyfriend was a firefighter, 240 pounds, no fat. And I'm hanging out of this guy, and he's kind of grinning at me. When he backed up, he goes, "You can let go now." And his girlfriend goes, "Are you afraid of heights?" I go, "Yes." And I said, "The sooner you guys stop looking out the door, the better I'll be." Or when we have class, and Ron will get people going on the meditation on the group deal, and he has him walk. "Why don't you float over to the edge of the building and look over?" And I go, "Yeah, this is time for me to take a break and have a drink until you floated back from the edge of the building ledge, Ron." That kind of stuff really disturbs me.
Okay, so here is, and I really didn't want to give it away. I just, thanks for your patience there. Katie Slack for unbelievable story, and she put that story in our group, and it's a link to a YouTube video. And I just it how can I say this? It would definitely blow the scope of our show to tell you about the the whole story. But Diane, what's the other aspect? So fear of heights is not necessarily a deterrent for somebody who wants to fly airplanes, paradoxically, right? So that's one thing. And Diane, you can relate to it because one of the things that grabbed you about her story was work related, right?
Right. One of the things really that she started off with on this post, and I absolutely related, was that she wanted to fly because she needed to for work, and her fear was getting in the way as she saw her future. And I'm certainly not afraid to fly, but I had a great being able to relate to her fear with regard to wanting to work. I wanted to be a flight attendant, but in order to be a flight attendant, you have to apply. And I'm pretty old. I mean, I'm really old. And I had not ever had a resume back in the day. You simply got a newspaper, you circled a want ad, and you went and got a job. And so all of a sudden I had to do something new. I had to get a resume. I had to go through video chats and Zoom meetings for applications. I had all this new stuff, but I had to do it because I wanted this particular job. And for me, luckily, I had my own group, my own kind of birds of a feather. I had friends who helped me and were my cheering squad. And so the only reason I was able to get over that fear and that anxiety was I had people around me saying, it's going to be okay. It really made a huge difference.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Dan. That's really, really cool. And I just want to add to it. Let me just change the view back here. That, what is it that really then gets us from where we are to where we want to be? So where we are is we're afraid to fly, terrified, have all these different things. And so what helped in the end, what helped Katie was the tools and the strategies that she learned, here at Fearless Flight and from Captain Ron, and determination, perseverance, an open mind that change is indeed possible, and that if you work it, it will work for you. And there couldn't be a better message that I can think of in terms of resilience and the ability to adapt to changing conditions than working on one's own presence and mindfulness, as well as the ability to manage, to move from one place to the next and without getting stuck anywhere. And that's what happens when we get into these loops, in the mental dialogue that gets us emotionally into a place that's pretty ugly. So
Yeah.
Check out that video. I mean, I'm so grateful. Katie, thank you so much for taking the time. If you're watching this video, thank you even more. Thank you for taking the time to share this with every one of us. I really appreciate it. And I just want to also point out that what we're talking about is a good kind of outlook for 2021. Adaptability, the ability to adapt to conditions that are unfamiliar, even confusing sometimes. I know some of them are for me, and finding my way. We all have to navigate, and obviously for some that's more stressful than others because there are certain belief structures that are impeding, kind of like a good harmony, and that means often a dis-ease mentally, emotionally, physically, wherever it shows. Eric, you seem to be itching to say something.
Oh, all I was going to say is after they answer the poll question of when they're going to fly again, it'd be very nice of them to immediately contact the airlines and let them know as well, because they're waiting with bated breath to find out when they're going to be flying again. So that would be a really courteous thing to do, and your mothers would be proud of you if you do that.
We would love that.
Okay, so I actually just found the comments. Okay, so let me just go through the and round up some of the comments here. First of all, thanks so much to our faithfuls. I'm gonna call them Jim, Michelle, and Susan. Thank you so much for being part of our journey. I mean, it was a pretty yeah, it was a pretty eventful year for all of us, that's for sure. And it's great to have people like you in our community who come back, give back, share. And Captain Ron and I, and obviously I'm sure Diane and Eric are super appreciative of everything that you add to our show and to our Birds of a Feather group. And wow. Somebody's saying that they were planning a once in a lifetime trip to Moscow. Gilbert, if you're still on, sorry, we're just getting to the comment now. Hey, tell us a little bit more about it. Like, when were you gonna fly? And if it's not top secret, tell us your purpose. And what anything that you want to share. What's the challenge other than obviously the changing goalposts in the regulations and stuff. So he's okay. So I see another comment says, if I can get therapy. So just tell us what is it that scares you about flying? That's is it the airplane? Is it the door closing? Whatever it is. And yeah, Jim agrees with with your experience, Diane. He says that from everything that that he's read, he also has seen that traveling is up in general. So, and definitely air travel in a local news story. And then did I miss how? Okay, so just a quick update. If you're joining us, Captain Ron, he is in a process of healing. He had a unforeseen medical procedure that kind of turned out to be a bit of an emergency and left him without a gallbladder in the process, and some other things that he is in the process of going through, and he's getting better, but not quite ready for the show yet. But he sends his love and his well wishes to all of you, and thanks for asking. Oliver, you didn't tell us what happened when you listened for the first time to the Fearless Flight Kit, the harmonizer. Eric, remember Oliver Fry from our global online masterclass?
I think so.
Yeah, Oliver was a firefighter, and well, I hope he still is a firefighter. It's a pretty cool job. And anyway, he runs into burning buildings, for fun or for work, and he's saying that the harmonizer, he just started listening to us. What was your experience, Eric, when you listened to it?
Oh, I am not a good person for that harmonizer. When we play that in class, I'd have to put my earplugs in. It drives me out of my mind. But there's been so many, 90+% of our people that have that thing going on in the airplane. It's so distracting for them that it really does relax them, because they're concentrating on so many things other than what's going on in the airplane.
Yeah. And the reason why I ask you, Eric, is simple, because nobody tells the purpose of the harmonizer better than you. It's literally designed to drive you out of your mind and into your senses, right? Because your mind is causing the problem. Your mind is causing the system to send out distress signals, right? Which then make our amazing inner drug lab create all these chemical compounds that we call and experience as emotions. And at that point, it's usually pretty late in the game. We're late to the game when that stuff happened, right? So, and unfortunately, that's where most people realize they're afraid to fly, right? Like it's really gonna not go well. And so the harmonizer is designed to bring our mind through mindfulness, and but not through becoming quiet and peaceful and but rather through meeting you where you are when you're anxious, and that's in chaos. And so that's why it is so successful. Okay, thanks, Eric.
I'm with Eric. I think probably why we're on the same wavelength on that is that he and I are comfortable listening to the sounds of the plane.
Totally.
We know what the sounds are. We know what they mean. We know that the change in the sounds in the plane are no big deal. And so we're fine with that. And if I cannot hear the sounds of the plane, then I don't get anxious, but I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I want to hear what the engines are doing. I want to hear that part. So yeah, it's just where you're coming from. It's interesting.
Yeah. And I also want to say hi to Mary. Hi, Mary Mahoney Grubbs. Great to see you on. Curious to hear if you are going to see, I believe it's your grandchildren, right? In Florida. So let us know. And then hi, Sarah Obershaw. I'm not familiar with Sarah. Let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Let me look for Neil. I'm not sure if Neil was still on earlier. He was the planning the once in a lifetime trip to Russia. All right, I don't think so. All right, so in the absence of that, let's move on to aviation news roundup. Eric, why don't you lead the charge here?
Okay. Well, we've had a pretty quiet week. And so I was really scanning news articles for things to talk about. And then I thought about, why don't I talk about the operations a little bit that people might not be familiar with, which I'm going to do. And we're going to talk about the pilot part of it. And then Diane's going to talk about the flight attendant part. And one of the things people aren't really familiar with what's going on is when the doors shut and they're playing their harmonizer and everything's fine, and the airplane starts pushing back into the alley between the concourses or wherever it's going to go before the engines are started, what's happening there? We're hooked to a tug, as we call it. The noun is tug, but as Diane pointed out, it can push and pull and does both. And the ground guys are pretty well trained to do a good job in it. And when you're a pilot, you hope that it's a farm kid. Either was a young girl, farm girl, or a young boy, young farm boy, because when they grew up in the Midwest, the dad was looking at them, and as soon as their legs were long enough, they were driving tractors, combines, inloaders, hay wagons, all kinds of stuff with hydraulics. So if you got a farm kid, we'll assume we got one pushing us back, you're in luck. They're pretty smooth. But we have very careful procedures that we have to follow in terms of when we release the brakes, that the tug driver tells us he has control of the airplane so it won't move when we release the brakes. We don't want the airplane to move at all and put ground people at risk, which is a great fear of ours. So we communicate real clearly on that. Also, the tow bar, this giant iron 20-foot bar, is hooked from the tug to the nose wheel of the airplane. And when the guys hook it up, it pushes a switch there that removes any hydraulic pressure from getting to the nose wheel. And we already have hydraulic pressure turned off, but it's possible with electrical spikes to get hydraulic pressure there. And you don't want that with that 20-foot iron bar down there. They have twitched or broken or hit people and broken their legs. So it's real serious in terms of how we do the brake release and push back. But we start the pushback, and they're doing a real smooth job, and we'll generally start one engine during the pushback if it's not slippery or icy. And so we're communicating on the engine start, which engine we're starting. And then when that engine starts, one of the things happens that the fearful flyers don't like. The engine generator will pick up electrical power from the auxiliary power unit in the back that's pumping air and electrics. And when it does, it'll power half the airplane lights and they'll all blink. So, and sometimes you'll hear a clunk because it is electrical buses switching, and it'll switch and there'll be a light blink. So that makes people nervous. And then we repeat, if we want a 2-engine taxi, we'll then repeat the process for the other side. There'll be another clunk and another light blink. And the tug driver will get us out. And when it's time to stop, he'll tell us, he'll slow us to a stop, and we'll set brakes. Once we're under the control of the tug driver, we're really kind of powerless. So it can be mildly unnerving, and we can see reflections of things going on in the window back there. And most of them do it pretty slow, but some of them that are confident in a hurry will come back really fast. And you have no indication, but occasionally airplanes have come off tow bars or they've broken. So you really are feeling just in the seat of your pants and how the airplane feels if it's still connected to the tow bar. You're a little worried about that. If it came loose and rolled and you had to put on the brakes, we don't have a wheel in the back, and it would be easy to tip the tail of the aircraft down if you stuck the brakes hard when you're pushing back. So it's a little unnerving, and you hope that Farm Kid isn't going to push you back very fast, because then you just won't be as nervous. So then we get out there and set the brakes. And I'm going to stop here for a minute because Diane is doing lots of stuff too now and doesn't have much time left to do it.
And before Diane jumps in, I just want to acknowledge that Jan Woods just joined us, and hey, welcome. And then I have a perfect lead in because I don't know, Eric, if you remember or not, but Jeff Kresnak, I don't know if you do you remember, we actually had him live on the show from his home in Minnesota, I believe. No, Michigan. Sorry, Michigan. Sorry, Jeff. And so Jeff actually is on the page that we have for the audio program that you are featured in. Actually, it features Capt Ron and you, and it's part of our Flight Deck Confidential series, audio program series. And so Jeff actually, he has a great story, and he is part of the pre-flight preparations. So go check it out if you don't have it yet, or if you haven't heard about our Flight Deck Confidential audio series, just check it out. I put the link already in the comments, so that's there. And Oliver, thanks so much. Yeah, he said the program helped him achieve one of his New Year's resolutions for 2020. Whoa, man. High fives, and that is so awesome. And so basically he flew for the first time in 20 years. So that's a long time.
Wow.
Oh, that's pretty great. Right.
So I can see, Oliver, how you might have an appetite for traveling. And as we are coming through this, and you as a, somebody on the front line, so to speak, I'm sure you would love to go to a place where you at some point can just relax. So, and I'm sure you earned it. And then Sue Hopkins. Hi, Sue. You're here as well. Yes, there is confusion in the Birds of a Feather community, and that's our Bostonian contingent, Sue Hopkins and Sue Miglagio. So when somebody mentions Sue, and Captain Ron is famous for Sue, and that would be easy if everybody was, if Eric and Dieter were called Derek, it would make life easy.
So she does all the time.
Yeah,
right?
he does it all the
He
time.
does that all the time.
So I hope you're watching this at some point, Captain Ron, and get a chuckle out of it, but not too much because he has a pretty big wound, and laughing out loud hurts a lot.
You can't make him laugh.
Yeah.
So let me follow on what Eric was saying with regard to the ground operations.
Yeah,
So
please.
I think that, you know, with it's not just, you know, we'll hook this little thing up and we'll push the plane out and everything will be hunky dory. It's really very, it's a little more complicated than that. And it's exactly much more complicated. And we're very concerned as flight attendants that the tug drivers are doing the wonderful job that we know that they're going to be doing, because of course, Captain Eric and the first officer, they're concerned the tug driver's doing it. And we are, because Eric and the first officer, they're in their seats in the flight deck and they're all strapped in. We're in the airplane, we're walking around, we're standing up. We're not in our jump seats at this point. We have announcements to give. We have something to do that we call sweeps. Every airline has a little bit, I think, probably terminology, but the behaviors are the same. So when we close the door, the boarding door, and then we have to, there's a series of things we go through. We have thumbs up, asking the captain. First, we have to ask the captain if we can close the door, and then we have to ask or tell them we're ready to taxi, which means the bins are closed. It's bins and bags. The bins have to be closed. The bags have to be stowed. And so when they said, yes, we're ready to taxi, thumbs up, we close the flight deck door, and then we're still standing up. I'm giving announcements. The other flight attendants give announcements. We're up walking around, making sure everybody has their bags stowed, their seatbelts are fastened, their tray tables are up. So I am very concerned that it goes very smoothly, because one of the worst bruises I've ever had, and flight attendants have a tendency, they'll say, where'd you get? Oh, this was the armrest from first class. Oh, that's nothing. Let me show you the bruise I got. One of the worst bruises I got, we were on the ground and we were pushing, and the tug driver was not quite as smooth. And I fell into the corner of a door. It was pretty interesting. So we're very concerned that the whole process is very, very smooth. And we are very often still up doing things while we're out taxiing out the alley, on the taxiway, and so on. And so we're right up with the pilots saying, let's make this as smooth as we can go.
So that I hear you, because I have been on planes and have seen flight attendants performing amazing pirouettes and gymnastics moves in order to maintain balance, as you know, not all runways are created equals and not all taxiways are maintained well, especially outside of the US. There's places that have other standards, and so it can sometimes be pretty bumpy, actually.
It can. And then of course Eric will talk about parking when we come in, we land. And that's the same. So there's a reason why we tell everybody keep your seatbelt fastened. The general rule is that if the seatbelt sign is on, we want all the passengers obviously buckled, and we may be up walking around doing something, but trust me, everybody out there, if the flight attendants are sitting in their jump seats with their seatbelts and their harnesses on, you really need to be in there, because if we're there, everybody needs to be sitting down. So we're not kidding. Do not unbuckle that seatbelt until the seatbelt sign goes off at the gate.
Yeah. So, and you know what? I'm so glad that we have you on the show, because sometimes the behavior of others can make our own fears even, you know, bring it more into focus. You know, when we watch others, you know, do unsafe behavior, or, you know, I'm gonna just say ignorant stuff that you know, puts you even maybe not in a real danger, but definitely heightens your anxiety to a degree.
Oh, yeah. Our job is to keep you alive. I mean, that's my first job is keep me alive, obviously, because I can't help the passengers. I'm not. My second job actually is to keep Captain Eric and the pilots alive. My second job is to protect them. And my third job is to protect everybody in the plane. Giving you a Coke is way down on the priority list.
But that's usually when you receive the good jobs. So anyway, oh my God, if
We're
there
having-
was if there was ever any doubt
Right,
whether we could fill our time together, I never had one. So I want to say thank you, Diane. Thank you, Eric, for another year of, I mean, God, this has been quite the ride for all of us personally, for us here at Fearless Flight. And I do want to acknowledge one other Fearless Flight employee, and that is a voluntary position, by the way. And that is Sue Wiley. Sue Wiley is really instrumental in helping Ron and me bring out the kind of programs and the depth, kind of bring it in a way that allows you to consume it. She's systems designer and knows a lot about how you learn best. So when you listen, for example, to the Flight Deck Confidential audio programs, it has her signature in it, and she was a fearful flyer, and she has kind of turned around and feels really good about giving back. And so in that spirit, I want to say thank you to all of you for being here in 2020. And I want to invite you, I'm going to throw this out there. Why don't you join us in 2021 as well? Because first of all, there's Capt Ron is on the horizon.
Yeah, soon.
I wish we had the budget for these jingle intros, where I think he earned one after that one. And so and I'm gonna throw it out there right here. The prediction for 2021 for me is there might be an Air Hollywood class towards the end of that year. Okay. So if you live in the LA area, you heard this. If and when we can do it safely and it makes sense and it fits together with Air Hollywood, because we're basically, dependent on their schedule as well. But I'm gonna say domestically for the US, it looks really, really good in terms of traveling and travel safety and all that. And also the demand. So God, wouldn't that be great if we could have an amazing class at Air Hollywood for 2021? What do you say to that, Eric?
That'll be fun. Those are really uplifting,
Yeah.
both for us and the people that are out there.
Yeah. And I think after a year like this one, it'll be like a reunion with many as well. So who knows? Let's that there's something to look forward to in 2021 already. All right. Well, thank you very much, and have a great start in the new year. I hope it takes off for you well, and I can guarantee you there will be bumps. There is no flight without some bumps, but I also can tell you that if you stick with us, you learn how to manage, your enjoyment and well-being while you're on the flight. Okay.
And next year we will, since we pushed back, we'll taxi out because we need to finish that. We'll taxi out and we'll return to the gate. We don't want to stay parked in the alley forever.
Oh, no.
Oh my God, that is the worst.
Yeah, we have some more flying to talk about.
Yeah, when we won't be in the penalty box.
So I hope that's in the past too, guys. Let's look forward. Okay. So
right.
Happy 2021 to everybody. Thanks, guys. And see you next year.
Happy New Year.